You ever notice how getting the thing you want is never quite as good as you thought it would be? You chase a goal, you finally get it, and almost right away, you're already looking for the next thing. Well, what if I told you that endless cycle isn't some personal flaw? What if it's just how we're built? Today, we're diving into one of the most wild and fascinating explanations for this from the psychoanalyst Jacques Lacan.
See, Lacan just flips the whole script on desire. He asks this really provocative question. What if all the things we want, the job, the car, the relationship, are just placeholders, decoys even, pointing to something else entirely, something we can never, ever actually get our hands on?
So, here's our game plan. First, we'll talk about that elusive object we're always chasing. Then we're going to redefine it as a whole. Yep, a whole. We'll figure out where that whole comes from, see how Lacan tried to map it, and finally, look at how we all end up just orbiting this invisible center.
All right, let's start with something we all know firsthand, that constant, endless chase. I mean, this is our life, right? We build our entire world around getting these things we're sure will finally complete us. Plug that little gap we feel inside. But it never works. The second we get the thing, the desire just hops over to something else. The finish line just keeps moving. So why?
Well, the way we usually think about it is pretty simple. It's a straight line. There's me, there's the thing I want, and I go get it. Boom. Done. But Lacan, he throws that whole idea out the window. He says desire isn't a line at all. It's an orbit. We're not moving towards an object. We're endlessly circling a central fundamental absence, a lack. And the things we chase, they're just convenient stops along the edge of that orbit.
So this central hole, this mysterious cause of all our wanting, it actually has a name in Lacan's work. He calls it objet petit a, or for short, object A. And here's the kicker, the part you really gotta get. Object A is not the object of our desire. It's the cause of our desire. It's that nagging feeling of not quite it that keeps the engine running. It's the emptiness that we trick ourselves into believing the next shiny thing will finally fall. But it can't. It never will.
And Lacan is brutally honest about this. He's not just saying, oh, sometimes the object doesn't satisfy us. No. He's saying its very essence, its fundamental nature, is failure. The objects we want are literally designed to fail because they can never be the thing we're actually truly after.
The absolute best analogy for this is to think of a psychic black hole. Object A is a void, an absence. You can't see it, you can't touch it, you can't grasp it, but you can see its effects everywhere. Our desires, our dreams, our whole lives are like planets and stars, completely caught in the massive gravitational pull of this invisible, unfillable center. Okay, so a fair question right about now is, if we're all built around this weird central hole, where in the world did it come from? Well, for Lacan, it all goes back to the moment we enter the world of language. Let's walk through this. Picture an infant. It cries. That cry is just pure, raw need. It doesn't know what it wants. But the mother, or what Lacan calls the big other, comes in and has to interpret it. She says, oh, you're hungry, or you must be tired. She translates that raw cry of need into a specific verbal demand. And in that translation, something is always lost. That vital pre-verbal feeling can't be perfectly squeezed into words. And that something lost doesn't just vanish. It gets carved out of us, leaving behind a permanent void. And that leftover, that's object A. It's the remainder, the little piece of ourselves we had to give up to learn how to speak. It's the pound of flesh we pay to enter society. Lacan uses some really stark words for it, like chute, a fall, or déchet, a piece of waste, a scarp. It's a fragment of our own being that got lost in translation. But it's still there, constantly pulling on us. Now here's the incredible paradox. This hole isn't just some empty space. It's what gives our entire psychic life its structure. Think about a coffee cup. It's the empty space inside that makes it a cup. In the same way, this lack at our core is what shapes everything about us. Our personality, our fantasies, our desires. They're all organized around the edge of that void. So if our mind is fundamentally defined by a hole, how on earth do you even begin to map that? Normal geometry won't work.
So Lacan got really interested in a weird branch of math called topology, because it's all about studying surfaces with twists and holes and gaps. And for him, these weren't just some cool metaphor.
And this is absolutely crucial to get. Lacan saw these shapes not as illustrations, but as serious operational models. They were tools for thinking. They were his way of trying to map the bizarre, twisted up, non-Euclidean space of the human mind. A space that's literally warped by the presence of this central lack.
So you take something like the Mobius strip. You take a strip of paper, give it a half twist, and tape the ends together. Suddenly you have a shape with only one side. For Lacan, this was the perfect model of the psyche. There's no simple inside for the unconscious and outside for the conscious, no. They're on one single continuous loop, constantly folding over into each other.
And it's the same idea with the torus, which is just a fancy name for a donut shape. A specific demand can be met. That's like drawing a little circle on the surface of the donut. But desire itself, desire has to go through the central hole. And that circuit, that loop, can never, ever close. It's a brilliant way to visualize why that lack at our core is permanent. It's irreducible.
Okay, so we've established this central void, this object A that gives us our structure. So how do we live with it? I mean, day to day, how do we cope? Well, that's where fantasy comes in. Lacan even came up with this little formula for it. Now, it's not a math equation you're supposed to solve, it's a map. The S with a line through it, that's us, the divided subject. The little a is the void, the cause of our desire. And that diamond shape in the middle represents our fundamental relationship to that void. This formula is a snapshot of our core fantasy. It shows how each of us, as incomplete beings, learns to position ourselves around the lack that drives us.
And this leads to a really profound conclusion. The true goal of desire isn't to get the object and stop. The goal of desire is just to keep desiring, to keep moving, to keep circling that central lack. And fantasy is the story we tell ourselves. It's the movie screen we project onto the void to make that endless orbit feel meaningful, to give it a direction and a purpose. It puts a face on the very thing that has no face.
So let's just recap. This object, a thing, does a lot of work. It's the hidden engine of our desire. It's the skeleton that holds up our fantasies. It's the source of that gut-wrenching anxiety we feel when the fantasy screen flickers and we get a terrifying glimpse of the void behind it. And ultimately, it's that lost, ungraspable piece of our own being that we spend our entire lives trying and failing to get back.
And that leaves us with this final, kind of unsettling question. If Lacan is right, if all our striving, all our wanting is really just a complicated dance around a central emptiness, then what are we actually doing? What is the real point of the chase if it isn't about the prize? Maybe it suggests that the meaning isn't found in arriving at some final destination, but in the unique, personal way that each of us chooses to navigate our own private orbit.